Chloe, you must have had a wild time overseas, didn't you? My sister-in-law, Fiona, whom I was meeting for the first time, suddenly blurted this out when I came home for the holidays. That necklace looks familiar. Black for in-person, white for video, blue for custom orders, red for no limits. What level are you at? My relatives, who had just been prying about my income, collectively gasped in shock. No wonder you insisted on going abroad. You were afraid of being seen if you were selling yourself here, huh? Mom and Dad were furious. Get out. Don't you dare stain our family's name. I touched the red carnelian necklace on my neck and smiled. Oh, Fiona, you've had a wilder time than me. You're sweeter to Mr. Jenkins next door than you are to Ethan. It had been 4 years since I'd been home. Mom and Dad had specifically invited all our relatives over for a big holiday dinner. I went around, toasting everyone and handing out the gifts I'd prepared. Aunt Carol kept praising me, eyeing the brand new designer bag I'd given her. Chloe, you're the successful one. Among all the kids in our family, no one earns as much as you. If you get a chance to get rich, don't forget to bring us along. Mom and Dad beamed, their faces glowing. Chloe not only earns a lot, but she's also so thoughtful. She even sends us $2,000 every month while studying abroad, unlike someone else I know. We sent him to a private vocational college that costs $40,000 a year, and he still couldn't graduate. He just lounges around at home all day, driving us crazy. Ethan, my brother, who had been sulking and drinking heavily, bristled at the comparison. Who knows where she got that money? It's probably dirty money. Fiona nudged his arm, then raised her glass with an apologetic look. Chloe, Ethan's had too much to drink, don't mind him. But I really don't know, what kind of work were you doing abroad that paid so well? I put down my glass, about to speak, but then I saw her raise an eyebrow, a look on her face like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Honestly, you don't have to say anything, Chloe. We all understand that a pretty girl like you might be tempted to make quick cash. The moment she finished speaking, everyone at the dinner table stared at me. Someone blunt just came out and asked, Chloe, were you selling yourself overseas? Fiona then seemed to realize she'd spoken out of turn, waving her hand with a laugh. What, selling herself? Why say something so ugly? I didn't say anything at all. Eat. But I just need to remind you, Chloe, don't let anyone take pictures or videos. With all your male relatives around, it would be awful if they saw you online later. I couldn't believe Fiona, whom I was meeting for the first time, would openly spread rumors about me. I was so angry, I slammed my fist on the table. That's nonsense. How could you say such a thing? Did you see anything? She looked startled. No, I didn't see anything. I'm just talking nonsense, okay? But if you're wearing that kind of necklace, why are you afraid of people talking? But it was too late to stop the conversation. Dad slammed his fork down. What necklace? Explain yourself. Fiona was quick to reply. Everyone says that international students who wear those necklaces are wild. Black for in-person, white for video, blue for custom orders, red for no limits. Chloe, what level are you at? The relatives who had been showering me with compliments instantly changed their tune. I knew it. How else could she earn money instead of spending it on studies? TSK, tisk. Let her keep that money. We're not jealous of that kind of cash. Aunt Carol, who had been clutching her new bag, also changed her expression. Ugh, no way. I don't want anything bought with dirty money. Don't you dare track that filth into our home. She even stomped on the ground a few times. Mom and Dad sobered up completely, unable to process what was happening. Mom clutched her chest, struggling to breathe. Chloe, is what your sister-in-law saying true? Speak up. I angrily pounded the table. Of course it's not true. Dad glared. Then why would Fiona say that? Where did you get that necklace? I pulled up the brand's official website to show them. This necklace is from an international luxury brand. People all over the world buy it. What does it have to do with international students? I never imagined that something even celebrities and millionaires wore could be used to spread rumors about me. It was like seeing someone with an expensive watch and accusing them of having a sugar daddy. But Fiona was defiant. Exactly. It's an expensive brand, so rich men use it to give as gifts. Watching her spout nonsense, I felt my blood pressure rising. If I didn't clear this up, my reputation would be completely ruined. Gritting my teeth, I forced myself to calm down and asked her, Fiona, you've never even been abroad. What proof do you have for what you're saying? To my surprise, she was prepared. She immediately shared a video to the family group chat. This is what people who studied abroad themselves said. You female international students, you've had your fun, made your money overseas, and now you come back looking for some unsuspecting local guy to settle down with. At her words, Mia, my cousin, who had just been thinking of introducing me to a friend, looked disgusted. I knew it. None of you who go abroad are any good. Fawning over foreigners, getting used up by foreign men, then running back to contaminate our pure, good-hearted local guys. Leo, my other cousin, stared at my stomach. I wondered why you suddenly came back after 4 years. You're pregnant and forced to come back looking for someone to marry, right? Is the baby black or white? I almost laughed from sheer anger watching that video. The person in the video was talking about how those necklaces were popular in niche circles, but in Fiona's mouth, it became, everyone who wears this necklace is wild. The video clearly said that both male and female international students could be led astray abroad, but Fiona only mentioned female international students. I grabbed her arm and started pulling her toward the door. Olivia, Mr. Evans's daughter from upstairs, also studied abroad, and she wears this necklace. Let's go ask her if she was selling herself too. Ethan, who had been silent, immediately blocked the doorway. Chloe, haven't you caused enough trouble? Are you trying to embarrass us even more? Your sister-in-law has never even met you. Ask yourself, what good would it do her to spread rumors about you? My whole family stood together, pointing fingers at me. A deep sense of despair choked me. Even though I hadn't been home for 4 years, I'd spent countless hours and money helping Mom and Dad buy a house and helping Ethan get married and settle down. Now, those 4 were a family, and I was the outsider. Seeing my whole family say this, the relatives were even more convinced that I'd had a wild, private life abroad. Flies don't buzz around clean eggs. So many people are here. Why are they only talking about you and not us? Your parents boast to everyone that they have a daughter studying abroad. Now where are they supposed to put their faces? I don't dare come to your house for the holidays anymore, lest you corrupt my kids. Mom's eyes rolled back, and she collapsed into a chair. Dad's hand, pointing at my nose, trembled. Chloe Miller, we never lacked food or drink in this house. Why would you do something so scandalous? I was about to explain again that I hadn't, but Fiona cut me off. Mom, Dad, don't say that to Chloe. Maybe it really is a coincidence. Even if Chloe inexplicably has so much money, and out of all the branded necklaces, she happened to pick this one, it doesn't necessarily mean she was selling herself. I felt faint with anger. Her words seemed to be defending me, but in reality, they still implied the same thing, determined to link me to promiscuous international students. I stopped wasting my breath and pulled out the journal articles I'd published over the past 4 years. I was always holed up at school. How would I have time to go out? All this money I earned from doing freelance research in the lab. Fiona listened, then gasped in fake surprise, covering her mouth. Chloe, you were doing those sorts of things in the lab? You're so brave. I stared into Fiona's eyes, so enraged I felt fire spitting from them. You're slandering me, and that's illegal, you know that? If you don't have proof, I'll call the police and have you arrested right now. Fiona scoffed, then pulled out a photo from her phone. You want proof? Here it is, see for yourself. Fiona thrust her phone screen directly in front of my face. Her acrylic nail, painted a tacky neon pink, tapped violently against the glass. Look at this, everyone. See for yourself. Don't say I'm making things up to bully her. The internet doesn't lie. My relatives immediately swarmed. Aunt Carol crane-necked, so hard I heard her joints pop. Leo and Mia pushed past my mother, their eyes gleaming with the predatory hunger of people who loved nothing more than watching someone successful fall from grace. On the screen was a photograph. It was taken at night, outside the glittering glass facade of the Four Seasons Hotel in Boston. The lighting was slightly grainy, clearly snapped from a distance with a telephoto lens or a highly zoomed-in phone camera. In the frame, I was standing next to a tall, silver-haired Caucasian man in a bespoke charcoal suit. He was smiling warmly at me, one hand resting on my shoulder, while his other hand handed me a small, distinctive green and gold jewelry box. Hanging around my neck in the photo was the exact same red carnelian necklace I was wearing right now. Oh my God, Mia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, though her eyes were dancing with delight. It really is her. And look at that man, he looks like he's at least 60. And look at the box. Fiona crowed, her voice reaching a shrill, triumphant pitch. That's the exact box this brand of luxury jewelry comes in. He bought it for her. A red one. Red for no limits. We all know what no limits means in that world, don't we? She let some old foreigner do whatever he wanted to her just to get a piece of jewelry and some pocket money. My father's face turned the color of a bruised plum. He looked at the photo, then at me, his chest heaving. Chloe, you shameless girl. Is this what we raised you for? To go abroad and sell your body to old men? Dad, look at the date on the bottom of the photo, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. The sheer, absurd stupidity of their jump to conclusions had bypassed my anger and landed straight into a cold, clinical disgust. Did you even bother to ask what this event was? What is there to ask? Ethan slammed his beer bottle onto the dining table, foaming liquid splashing over the cold turkey platter. The evidence is right there. You're standing outside a 5-star hotel at night, taking jewelry from a sugar daddy. I've been wondering how a useless girl like you could afford to send home 2 grand a month while I, a grown man, struggle to make ends meet. It's because you were lying on your back.
Ethan.
Watch your mouth. I snapped, my eyes locking onto his. A grown man? You're 26, you dropped out of a school that cost $40,000 of our parents' hard-earned money, and you haven't held a job for more than 3 weeks. The only thing you're grown in is your waistline and your jealousy. You. Ethan surged forward, his face red with rage, but Dad held him back, though Dad's glare remained fixed on me. Chloe, stop deflecting, Dad roared. Explain the photo. Who is that man? Why is he giving you jewelry at a hotel at night? Fiona smirked, crossing her arms. Go on, Chloe. Let's hear the creative story you've cooked up. Are you going to say he's your professor, who just happened to buy his favorite student a multi-thousand-dollar luxury necklace out of the goodness of his heart? Actually, I said, pulling out my own phone and tapping the screen, he is a professor. But he didn't buy me this necklace. I bought it myself. And that box he's handing me? It wasn't jewelry. I opened my email app, found an archived thread, and cast my screen directly to the 65-inch smart TV hanging on the living room wall. What are you doing? Aunt Carol muttered, squinting at the screen as a massive document with official institutional letterheads appeared. This is the official program for the annual biomedical symposium hosted by the Harvard Medical School and the Massachusetts General Hospital Research Institute, I said, my voice echoing clearly in the silent room. The old man in the photo is Dr. Richard Vance. He is a member of the National Academy of Sciences, a Nobel laureate nominee, and the chief scientific advisor of Vance Therapeutics. I swiped to the next slide, showing a group photograph published on the Harvard University official website. It was the exact same night, the exact same hotel lobby. In the official photo, there were 20 other researchers standing alongside Dr. Vance and me, all of us holding the exact same green and gold boxes. The jewelry box you see, I continued, zooming in on the official caption, is the ceremonial casing for the Vance Young Investigator Award. The award comes with a direct research grant of $50,000. I won first place for my paper on targeted oncology therapies. The red necklace I am wearing? I bought it for myself with my first freelance consulting paycheck from Pfizer 3 months prior to celebrate passing my qualifying exams. The dining room fell into a suffocating, dead silence. Mia's mouth was still open, but the mock pity was gone, replaced by a blank, stupid stare. Leo quickly looked down at his plate, suddenly very interested in his mashed potatoes. Fiona. I turned my head slowly to look at my sister-in-law, whose smirk had frozen into a bizarre, twitching grimace. Where did you get this photo? I found it on an anonymous forum, she stammered, her voice losing its confidence. Someone posted it saying international students who wear that necklace are. An anonymous forum, I repeated, stepping closer to her. You took a cropped, unverified photo from an online gossip board, ignored the thousands of public press releases showing the actual context of the Harvard Symposium, and brought it to a family dinner to accuse me of sex work.
Why?
Because you couldn't bear the thought that I succeeded where your husband failed? Or because you needed a distraction? A distraction? Ethan frowned, his drunken brain struggling to keep up. What the hell are you talking about, Chloe? Fiona was just looking out for the family name. Oh, Ethan, I sighed, looking at my brother with genuine pity. You really are as blind as you are lazy. You want to talk about dirty money and wild times? Let's talk about why Fiona knows so much about what goes on in the dark. Before Fiona could speak, I turned my attention to my parents. Mom was still sitting in her chair, clutching her chest, but her eyes were no longer wild with panic. They were wide with a sudden, dawning realization of how badly they had just miscalculated. Dad stood frozen, his hand still half raised from pointing at me. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice cold and even. Over the last 4 years, I have sent you $2,000 every single month. That's $96,000 in cash. Where did you think that money came from? Did you truly believe a girl selling herself would send her hard-earned money back to a family that didn't even call her on her birthday unless they needed a bank transfer? Chloe, Mom whispered, her voice trembling. We didn't know. We just heard Fiona say those things and we got scared. You know how people gossip in this neighborhood. You got scared of the gossip, so you chose to believe a stranger over your own daughter, I said. When Aunt Carol and the others insulted me, you didn't say a single word to defend me. You sat there, waiting to see if you needed to discard me to save your precious reputation. That's not true, Dad defended weakly. We were shocked. Let's talk about this house, I continued, gesturing to the spacious, newly renovated walls around us. 2 years ago, you told me Ethan wanted to get married, but Fiona's family demanded a new apartment as a condition. You didn't have the money. You cried on the phone, saying Ethan would be single forever and the family would be disgraced. So, I wired you $80,000 for the down payment. Isn't that right? Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Fiona's eyes darted toward the door. Actually, no. I corrected myself. I didn't wire it to you. I paid the developer directly. And because I didn't trust Ethan's ability to pay a mortgage without a job, the deed to this very apartment is registered under my name. You two are tenants. Ethan and Fiona are squatters. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Aunt Carol's eyes practically popped out of her head. That the apartment is in your name? Ethan yelled, his voice cracking. Dad. You told me this was our family home. You said it was mine. We were going to transfer it to you eventually, Dad stammered, his face turning pale. Chloe, you're his sister. You have so much money. Why do you care about a stupid apartment? You live in America. I cared because I thought I had a family, I said. But tonight, I realized I don't. I have a group of parasites who are happy to bleed me dry, use my money to buy their homes and their designer bags. I glared at Aunt Carol, who quickly tried to hide her new handbag behind her back, and then throw me to the wolves the second a bitter, insecure woman throws dirt on my name. Chloe, dear. Aunt Carol suddenly squealed, her tone shifting into a sickeningly sweet register. I always knew you were a good girl. I was just joking earlier. This bag is beautiful, truly. I know you earned it with your smart brain. Shut up, Carol, I said flatly. Aunt Carol's face flushed red, but she didn't dare speak another word. Now, let's address Fiona's sudden concern with my love life, I said, turning back to my sister-in-law. Fiona was backing away, her hand reaching for her coat on the rack. I don't feel well. Ethan, let's go. Your sister is crazy. She's fabricating things to turn the family against me. Don't leave yet, Fiona, I smiled, stepping in front of the exit. We haven't gotten to the best part of the evening. You wanted to know what level my red necklace represents? Let me show you what level of security I keep on my investments. When I bought this apartment for my parents and brother 2 years ago, I didn't just pay the down payment. I also paid for the renovations and the smart home integration. Because I was overseas and worried about my elderly parents' safety, I set up the entire security system, including the high-definition smart cameras installed at the front door, the balcony, and the shared hallway, under my own personal master account. My parents and Ethan only had guest access. They could view the live feed, but they didn't have access to the cloud archives, nor did they receive notifications for unusual activity that occurred during the dead of night. I tapped my phone again, switching the cast on the TV from my academic records to the smart home security app. What is that? Ethan asked, squinting at the screen. This is the cloud library for the front door camera, I said. Specifically, the camera that faces the shared landing between our apartment and the one next door, belonging to Mr. Jenkins. Fiona's face drained of all color. She lunged forward, trying to grab my phone. Stop it. This is a violation of privacy. Ethan, make her stop. Ethan, if you touch me, I will call the police and have you evicted tonight, I said, my voice cold as ice. Ethan froze, his hand hovering in midair. He looked at Fiona, then at the TV screen, a horrible doubt beginning to take root in his mind. Fiona, what is she talking about? Let's look at the logs from last month, I said, scrolling through the dates. Let's choose. November 14th. Ethan, if I recall, you were away that weekend for a job interview in the next city, right? Yeah. I was gone for 3 days, Ethan muttered. Perfect. Let's watch the 2 a.m. feed from November 14th. I tapped play. The high-definition, infrared night vision video showed the dimly lit hallway outside our apartment. The door to our apartment opened softly. Fiona slipped out. She wasn't wearing her usual pajamas. She was wearing a sheer, silk nightgown that left very little to the imagination. She didn't take the elevator. Instead, she took 3 steps to the right, tapped a specific rhythm on Mr. Jenkins' door and waited. A second later, the door opened. Mr. Jenkins, a 55-year-old retired real estate developer who was wealthy, divorced, and lived alone, appeared in the doorway wearing only a bathrobe. The video was so clear you could see the wide grin on his face. Fiona didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around his neck, and the two of them shared a passionate, lingering kiss in the hallway before he pulled her inside and shut the door. Oh my God, Aunt Carol whispered, her eyes wide with scandalous joy. This was even better than gossiping about me. No, that's not me. It's doctored. She AI-generated this. Fiona screamed, her voice cracking as she shook Ethan's arm. Ethan, you have to believe me. She's using that fancy American technology to frame me. I love you. Wait, there's more, I said cheerfully, scrolling to another clip. Let's look at November 16th, 4:30 a.m. Fiona is sneaking back into our apartment. But look closely at her hands. What is she holding? I zoomed in on the video. Fiona was holding a thick wad of cash, wrapping a rubber band around it before stuffing it into her designer handbag, the very same luxury handbag she had been bragging about to the relatives when she first arrived tonight. And here's one from last week, I said, playing a third clip. This one was during the daytime. Mr. Jenkins was standing by his car, in the parking lot. Fiona walked up to him, leaned in through the window for a quick kiss, and he handed her a small shopping bag. Fiona, you told Ethan that bag was a knockoff you bought online for $50, I said, tilting my head. But that's a genuine Chanel. I guess Mr. Jenkins is a lot more generous than Ethan, who can't even pay for his own cigarettes. You whore, Ethan roared. The dining room erupted into absolute chaos. Ethan lunged at Fiona, his hands grasping her shoulders as he shook her violently. You dirty bitch. I spent $40,000 on our wedding. I gave your family everything they asked for. And you're sleeping with the old man next door? Ethan, let go of me. It's not what you think. Fiona cried, her fingernails clawing at his face. He was going to help you get a job. I did it for us. I did it for your career. For my career? In a silk nightgown at 2 a.m? Ethan screamed, punching the dining table, sending the plates crashing to the floor. The holiday turkey slid off the table, landing with a wet thud on the expensive rug I had paid for. Mom looked like she was actually going to faint this time. She slumped backward, her eyes rolling up, while Dad desperately fanned her with a paper plate, his own hands shaking so hard he could barely hold it. Fiona, how could you? Dad groaned, his face haggard. We treated you like our own daughter. We gave you a home. A home? Fiona sneered, suddenly dropping her sweet act. Since she was caught, her face hardened into a mask of pure venom. She wiped the tears from her face and glared at everyone in the room. You call this a home? This apartment belongs to your daughter. You don't even own the dirt under your feet. And your son? He's a useless loser. He sleeps until noon, plays video games all day, and expects me to live on the pennies he steals from you. If I didn't sleep with Jenkins, how else was I supposed to buy nice clothes? How was I supposed to live? You shameless woman. Aunt Carol pointed a trembling finger at her. To think we welcomed you into our family. Shut up, Carol. Fiona spat, turning her glare on her. You think you're any better? You've been eyeing Chloe's money since the second she walked through the door. You're all just a bunch of beggars waiting for her scraps. Enough, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but the cold finality in it made everyone quiet down. The room was a disaster zone. Shattered plates, spilled gravy, screaming relatives, and a family dynamic that had been utterly pulverized in the span of 30 minutes. I looked at my parents. They looked back at me, their eyes filled with a mixture of shame, fear, and a desperate, pleading hope that I would somehow fix this. Chloe, Mom whimpered, reaching out a hand. We were wrong. We should have trusted you. You're our pride and joy. Please don't be angry with us. Your pride and joy. I let out a soft, humorless laugh. Mom, when Fiona accused me of selling my body, you didn't ask me for my side of the story. You immediately assumed I was guilty because you were terrified of what the neighbors would think. You care more about your face than your daughter's life. We were just confused, Chloe, Dad said, his voice cracking. We're old. We don't understand these things. You understand money well enough, I said. You understood it when you took my $96,000 over the last 4 years. You understood it when you asked me to buy this house. But from this moment on, the bank is closed. What do you mean? Ethan gasped, his face pale as he wiped a scratch on his cheek from Fiona's nails. I mean, I am stopping the monthly allowance, I said. Not another dime is coming from my account to yours. But how will we pay the bills? Mom cried. Your father's pension isn't enough to cover the utilities and our medicine. Then Ethan can get a job, I said, looking at my brother. He's a grown man, remember? He can work at a convenience store, or deliver food, or do whatever it takes to support his parents. Or he can starve. I don't care anymore. And what about this apartment? Fiona demanded, her voice sharp. If you stop paying, are you going to kick your own parents onto the street? I looked at Fiona, then at my parents, and finally at Ethan. I won't kick Mom and Dad out, I said slowly. They can live here, but the lease is in my name, and I am the landlord. I will be drafting a formal tenancy agreement. The rent will be set at the market rate. If you can't pay it, I will sell the property and buy myself a nice vacation home in California. Chloe, you can't do this. Dad yelled, standing up. We are your parents. And I was your daughter, I said. But you traded me for a piece of gossip. You wanted to know what level my necklace represents, Dad? It represents the level of independence where I don't need your approval, your love, or your presence in my life. I walked over to the coat rack, took down my wool coat, and wrapped it around my shoulders. I picked up my purse, making sure my passport and laptop were secure inside. Chloe, wait. Aunt Carol scrambled toward me, still holding the designer bag I'd given her. What about us? What about the gifts? I looked down at the bag in her hands. With a swift, practiced movement, I snatched the strap from her grip. You said you didn't want anything bought with dirty money, Aunt Carol, I said, offering her a sweet, cold smile. I wouldn't want to contaminate your pure, good-hearted household. I'll take this back. I'm sure my lab assistants in Boston would appreciate a nice Christmas gift. I walked to the door, stepping over the ruined holiday dinner. Before I turned the handle, I looked back one last time. Fiona was packing her things in a fury, screaming at Ethan. Ethan was crying, clutching his head in his hands. Mom was weeping, and Dad looked like he had aged 10 years in a single night. "Merry Christmas," I said softly. I stepped out into the cold, crisp winter air, shutting the door behind me. For the first time in 4 years, I felt entirely, wonderfully free. The winter air in my hometown was biting, a stark contrast to the suffocating heat of my parents' dining room. I walked down the concrete steps of the apartment complex, my boots crunching on the thin layer of frost coating the pavement. The streetlights cast long, quiet shadows across the empty courtyard. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of lightness, as if a heavy, invisible anchor I'd been dragging for years had finally been severed. I pulled out my phone and booked a room at a 5-star boutique hotel downtown. It was expensive, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel a single shred of guilt about spending money on myself. I had spent years counting every penny, living on instant noodles in my cramped Boston studio, so I could send those $2,000 home every month. I had convinced myself that my family's happiness was my responsibility. What a fool I had been. By the time the rideshare car pulled up, my phone was already vibrating with missed calls and messages. "Dad. Chloe, answer your phone. We need to talk. Your mother's blood pressure is dangerously high. You can't just walk out like this. Ethan, you ruined my life. You planned this, didn't you? You wanted to embarrass Fiona and me in front of everyone. If Fiona leaves me, I'll never forgive you. Aunt Carol. Chloe, dear, I think there was a misunderstanding. I was just trying to keep the peace earlier. Your uncle, and I always knew you were a genius. About that bag, could we perhaps talk?" I smiled, selected all the notifications, and hit mute all. Then, I blocked Fiona's number entirely. When I arrived at the hotel, the lobby was warm and smelled of pine needles and expensive cinnamon. The receptionist, a polite young man with a crisp collar, smiled warmly as he checked me in. "Welcome back, Ms. Miller. We hope you have a wonderful stay with us." "Thank you," I said, handing him my credit card. My room was on the 12th floor, featuring a massive king-sized bed, a deep soaking tub, and a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city skyline. I tossed my coat onto the armchair, kicked off my boots, and poured myself a glass of red wine from the minibar. I sat by the window, watching the distant headlights crawl along the highway like tiny golden beetles. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't my family. It was an email notification from my academic advisor, Dr. Richard Vance. Subject: Vance Biotech Seed Funding Approved. Dear Chloe, I am thrilled to inform you that the board has officially approved the initial seed funding of $1.2 million for your targeted oncology startup. Your research on microRNA delivery systems has the potential to revolutionize how we treat small cell lung cancer. We would like to schedule a press conference in Boston on January 5th to announce the launch. Enjoy your holiday with your family. You've worked harder than anyone I know, and you deserve this time to rest. Warm regards, Richard Vance, PhD. I stared at the email, a genuine, tearful smile spreading across my face. I took a slow sip of the wine. Enjoy your holiday with your family. If only he knew, but it didn't matter. My research, my career, my future, those were my real family now. They were the only things that had never lied to me, never demanded more than I could give, and never turned on me for the sake of a cheap rumor. I tapped a quick reply. Dear Dr. Vance, thank you so much for the incredible news. I am absolutely thrilled and ready to hit the ground running. I will actually be returning to Boston ahead of schedule. Let's schedule a preliminary meeting for next week to prepare the press materials. Best, Chloe. I closed my laptop. I had a lot of work to do, but first I needed to handle the trash I had left behind in my hometown. 3 days later, I returned to my parents' apartment. I didn't go alone. I brought along Mr. Harrison, a sharp, middle-aged real estate attorney I had hired through a local firm. He was carrying a leather briefcase, his expression professional and entirely unbothered by the petty drama he was about to witness. When I unlocked the door with my master key, the apartment was in a state of quiet misery. The holiday decorations were still up, but they looked sad and wilted. The dining table had been wiped down, but the faint smell of spilled gravy still lingered in the air. My mother was sitting on the sofa, her eyes red and swollen. My father was sitting at the dining table, a half-empty cup of cold tea in front of him. When the door opened and they saw me, both of them stood up instantly. "Chloe," Mom cried, taking a step forward. "You're back." "Oh. Thank God. We've been so worried." Her voice trailed off when she saw Mr. Harrison step in behind me, closing the door with a firm, official click. Who is this?" Dad asked, his brow furrowing as he looked at the attorney's expensive suit and briefcase. This is Mr. Harrison, I said, walking into the living room and sitting on the armchair. I didn't offer my parents a hug, nor did I ask how they were doing. He is my legal counsel. We are here to finalize the terms of your residency in this apartment. Residency? Dad's voice rose. Chloe, this is our home. Why do we need a lawyer for our own home? It is my property, Dad. I corrected him. You do not own it. I paid the down payment, and I have been paying the monthly mortgage. Since you've made it clear that you view my financial contributions as dirty money and my presence as a stain on your family name, we are transitioning this into a strictly professional relationship. Mr. Harrison stepped forward, opening his briefcase and laying 3 copies of a document on the table. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, Mr. Harrison said, his voice smooth and clinical. This is a standard residential lease agreement. The property is owned solely by Ms. Chloe Miller. Under the terms of this lease, you are permitted to occupy the premises for a fixed term of 1 year, renewable at the landlord's discretion. The monthly rent will be set at $1,800, which is slightly below the current market rate for this district. $1,800? Dad gasped, his face turning pale. Where are we supposed to get that kind of money? My pension is only $1,200 a month. That is not Ms. Miller's concern, Mr. Harrison replied calmly. Additionally, there is a clause regarding unauthorized occupants. Under Section 4, only the registered tenants, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, are permitted to reside here. Any long-term guests staying for more than 7 consecutive days without the landlord's written consent will be considered a breach of lease, resulting in immediate eviction. You're kicking Ethan out? Mom sobbed, burying her face in her hands. He's your brother, Chloe. He has nowhere else to go. Fiona left him 2 days ago. She took all her things and moved in with Mr. Jenkins next door. The whole neighborhood is laughing at us. I wasn't surprised. Fiona was a parasite. Once she realized Ethan had no money and no future, and that I was cutting them off, she had no reason to stay. Mr. Jenkins, with his thick wallet and lonely apartment, was her easiest escape route. If Fiona moved next door, then Ethan has plenty of space to find a job and rent his own place, I said, completely unmoved by my mother's tears. He is 26 years old. He is not my child, and he is certainly not my responsibility. He has 24 hours to pack his bags and vacate my property. Chloe, please, Dad pleaded, his anger finally breaking into desperate begging. We're your parents. We made a mistake, okay? We shouldn't have listened to Fiona. We were foolish. But you can't do this to us. If you do this, we'll lose everything. What will people say when they find out our own daughter is charging us rent? They'll say exactly what they want to say, Dad, I said, standing up. Just like they did when they believed I was selling myself overseas. You cared so much about face and reputation. Now, you can explain to your relatives why your successful daughter has put you on a lease. I looked at Mr. Harrison, who nodded and handed Dad a pen. You have until tomorrow at 5 p.m. to sign the lease and have Ethan vacate the premises, Mr. Harrison said. If the lease is not signed, we will begin the formal eviction process for all occupants. Have a good day. I turned and walked toward the door. Chloe, Mom screamed behind me, her voice cracked with despair. We raised you. We gave you life. How can you be so cold? I paused at the doorway, my hand resting on the brass handle. I didn't look back. You gave me life, Mom, but I paid you back with interest. $96,000 in cash, a down payment on a house, and 4 years of absolute silence while I worked myself to the bone. We're even. I pulled the door open and stepped out into the hallway, shutting the door on their cries forever. A week later, I was sitting in the first-class cabin of a Boeing 777, watching the snowy landscape of my hometown shrink into insignificance beneath the clouds. The cabin was quiet, the gentle hum of the engines providing a soothing white noise. A flight attendant politely offered me a glass of champagne, which I accepted with a smile. I looked down at the red carnelian necklace resting against my collarbone. It caught the bright sunlight streaming through the cabin window, glowing like a small, brilliant ember. Beautiful necklace, the woman sitting in the seat next to me remarked. She was an elegant, older woman wearing a tailored cashmere coat. Is it the classic Alhambra? Yes, it is, I said, smiling warmly. I bought it to celebrate a major milestone. A well-deserved treat then, she smiled, raising her glass to me. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, I agreed, clinking my glass against hers. As the plane climbed higher, breaking through the gray winter clouds into the endless, brilliant blue of the upper atmosphere, I felt a profound sense of peace. Behind me, in that small, bitter town, my family would have to learn how to survive on their own. Ethan would have to finally grow up, or suffer the consequences of his laziness. My parents would have to face the judgment of the very relatives they had tried so hard to impress. Fiona would eventually realize that a man like Mr. Jenkins didn't keep parasites around for very long once the novelty wore off. But none of that was my concern anymore. Ahead of me lay Boston. Ahead of me lay my lab, my research, my startup, and a life of my own making. I was no longer the dutiful daughter trying to buy her family's love. I was Chloe Miller, independent, successful, and entirely, beautifully free. I took a sip of the cold, crisp champagne and looked out at the horizon, ready for whatever came next.